Oh yeah,
Alice.
there are some notes, but like I did write this in like in one sitting. I sat down at the computer and I was like, oh fuck, we need a bonus episode in a hurry because like the one that we were gonna do this month got pushed back to next month. So I'll just write a bonus episode based on something that I know. So
it's about
we're going.
everyone's favorite topic.
Yes,
car bombs.
Car bombs. Yeah.
All right. So what you do, right, is you take.
what you're gonna want to do is you're gonna want to incorporate yourself as a farm, right? And then nobody's gonna ask any questions when you start buying a load of fertilizer. And then what you do?
That's a lot easier than the 20 bags of Anvo I have stored at Roz's apartment.
And then what you're going to do is you're going to use that fertilizer to fertilize.
I don't know about
to fertilize your farm, and you're just going to make a productive career farming. Actually, you don't have to do any farming to like do that. You just like
farm, Roz.
Soak up the state and federal subsidies.
Give me your corn subsidies, please.
Yeah, exactly. You know,
I'm making ethanol or whatever.
You wait for Joe Brandon to like pay you to grow nothing. But so hello and welcome, bonus episode. You know who we are.
Yes.
I wrote this one in a hurry. And this is a car bomb. This is a car bomb going off in Iraq. And what I'm going to explain to you...
that's not right at all. Your ratio of Baileys to JMO here is way off.
what I'm
going to just give you diarrhea.
It's just going to curdle, yeah.
What I and my friends are going to do over the course of the next hour and change, I hope, is explain to you why this car bomb is the fault of hippies, misguided water engineers, and German miners. Did you die? Did you die?
No, you did a car bomb.
Yeah, I knocked over a bottle because I was trying to get it out of the way of the screen.
What are you drinking, bud?
I got a Southern Tier double IPA.
Alice, what you got?
I don't have anything right now. I drank a little Pepsi earlier. But,
so we are.
Not Nitro Pepsi, though.
Oh, the Nitro Pepsi is quite good. I actually really like it.
They won't bring it to the UK, and like no one even imports it. I was bitching to Justin earlier.
But you get Whopper flavored Doritos, which we don't have.
We do?
Oh.
Yeah, you do.
I've never seen those.
They're new.
Yeah, so I want Pepsi Nitro. Pepsi UK won't make it happen.
I want Whopper flavored Doritos, so we'll talk.
We'll do a sort of like East Berlin spy swap, you know?
Yeah, Roz will be our
get you some of that.
Two of those little food delivery robots drive past each other on the bridge in the fog.
They shake hands and then they leave.
Yeah.
They got those Italian hoagie flavored chips. You know,
not hers. Who makes those? Those are good.
I think it's it's someone more local than hers, which is funny because hers is pretty local as far as I know.
Yeah,
they're like Primo hoagie flavored chips.
Yeah. Hang on, no, those are good. I've had those. No, they're hers, dude.
Are they hers? Okay.
Yeah, they're hers, dude.
That makes
sense.
Really
good. The chips have pronouns. It's fucked up that Joe Biden would make that happen.
Apparently Utz might also make them, but
Utz pronouns.
Yeah.
Well, Utz is me. York County. Those are my people.
Union Shop.
It's the Union Shop. I know a guy who does their R&D. Actually, I went to high school with him.
Union chip makers, cool.
I do R&D for the chip company.
He does. And they
trying to invent new kinds of like new precisors and stuff. Food science is no joke, you know.
Down there in the basement with the chip particle accelerator.
Just
finally the chip too. You know,
we're trying to find the Higgs boson of chips.
when they did all of those like targeted sanctions on Chinese chip makers, that was why. You know,
that was why.
People thought it was about computers. No.
Did you see the sponsorship we got pre-approved for?
We got what? No,
we got pre-approved for a HelloFresh sponsorship.
Oh, right? No, fuck off.
Don't.
Caitlin, if you're listening, stop fucking bothering me.
No, thank you. You should not do that. You should not consume their products. What you should
an
do?
Anti-sponsorship.
Yeah. I guess it's like raising brand awareness. If we're like HelloFresh sounds like shit, you know, don't buy it. Just go to a grocery store or whatever. But like. Anyway,
it's like okay. I've had some HelloFresh meals before. They're like fine.
No. We're not promoting them. We're not.
No, I'm not. It's way too expensive. I know a couple people who work for them, and keep in mind that HelloFresh also union busts.
Oh
well.
So sorry, Caitlin, no free advertising.
That's right. Car bombs. Back to the car
All
bombs.
right, back to car bombs.
Car
Actually, we
bombs,
gotta get away from the car bombs first.
Oh.
The way we get to car bombs is only going to be obvious to you if you like looked at the title or like any of the description of this episode. Which don't do that. Instead, follow me on a magical journey to the next slide. So.
Did you guys see the thing people tagged us in that says I don't call 811 and it's like 2 cross shovels?
That's really good. Yeah. So 811 is the like utility that will tell you what's under the ground when you're about to dig, whether you're about to like dig into a phone cable or like an ancient cemetery or whatever.
Yeah, or like a gas main. That's
yeah,
the
those
nasty
things.
one. Or a steam main. That stuff is like 600 degrees.
Yeah. And like very difficult to see a steam link. You just like hear it maybe, but like yeah. But so this is a problem, right? Like finding stuff that's under the ground is hard. And there's a lot of shit under the ground. And sometimes it's stuff that you don't want to avoid. It's stuff that you actually want to find. Like, you know, the oil, water, rocks, dead bodies. The mystical hoard of gems Eric Adams believes powers New York City. You know, any number of things.
Mole people.
The mole people. Maybe you want to like be sort of like ambassador to the mole people, but you need to know where to dig, right? And you know, you don't know where any of this shit is. And there's a couple of options to try and work out where those things are likely to be. You can use like geography and geology and all of this sort of like dirt science that we don't understand on this podcast. You could use like a ground penetrating radar if you wanted, but like none of those things used to be invented. Someone had to come up with those. And before those, you just had to kind of like wander around at random and hope you got lucky. You had to do the like Mr. Pocket thing, you know, like there's gold in this river, so it's coming off of this hill somewhere. So you just dig it up. And like we don't like doing stuff at random. And you have to do stuff at random. We don't like it. We like a narrative that assigns us agency, right? I wrote in sort of like a briefly sort of Reddit-inspired moment. A fedora descended onto my head when I wrote this. But I was like, yeah, I know. But I was like, oh yeah, that's why we have religion and everything.
Oh boy.
I know.
Boy.
Yeah.
So,
oh god.
So a number of folk magic traditions emerge around like mining and prospecting and stuff, including next slide, please. This thing, dowsing.
Dowsing rods.
Dowsing rods, yes.
Yeah, so dowsing is fun. Dowsing is you have this like little Y-shaped branch, and you do some magic to it, and now it's a magic branch. And you walk around with it just in your hands, and when you step over whatever it is you're looking for, like Eric Adams's hoard of diamonds or whatever, it like switches in your hands, like it like pulls down to be like, things here, like an objective marker. And you like that's how you know where to dig, right? And I've been kind of deceptive with this illustration. This is like often presented by people who are into it as being like an ancient peasant tradition. You know, this is sort of deep mystical knowledge of, you know, ancient folkways. People used to do this, and then, you know, like it was stamped out or whatever. This is not the case. Next slide, please. This is a 16th century innovation, as far as we can tell.
That sounds about right. That sounds like a 16th century grift.
Well, 16th century people loved magic. They loved it. They loved alchemy. They loved like spells and shit. And a lot of it was
find the philosopher's stone.
Yeah. And a lot of it was like sort of like tied up with these new sciences of like chemistry and stuff, in ways that like.
I mean, Sir Isaac Newton was the last alchemist, basically, from what I understand.
I'm gonna boil some piss for a month and discover phosphorus.
Yeah, it's like.
Shout out to Hell on Earth. Good series.
Yeah. It's an interesting sort of like history of science that you can do about this, about how like a lot of this stuff came out as sort of like new beliefs rather than old ones, and you know, so it was sort of like retconned into being an old belief. But this is an illustration here from Agricola's 1556 De Re Metallica. You can tell because the drums are terrible. And Yeah, this is mining. This is like 16th century mining happening in Germany. You mine a lot of silver, copper, tin, stuff like that.
Everyone gets in their own individual hole as opposed to creating one large hole.
Yeah, I mean, corporations aren't really a thing yet. This is just a guild. This is just a bunch of like individual guys, you know?
Guys, this is true. You know, you're out
Me and
there
the
mining.
fellas.
You're like, this is my hole. It was made for me.
Yeah.
Made by me as well.
So dowsing is probably something that like these guys come up with because they don't like just wandering around digging at random, and they want to try and get one over on their other guy, like the guy in the next hole. And like there's not a lot of geographical indication just looking at the ground where like a vein of silver is going to be necessarily. And you know, German mining is very successful. German miners get headhunted all over Europe. They take their shit with them. It goes to like, you know, the UK, goes to France, goes to the Nordic countries, goes to Spain. And our boy Agricola, the guy whose book this illustration is in, he notes at the time that it's like controversial. There are many great contentions between miners concerning the forked twig. For some say that it is of the greatest use discovering veins, and others deny it, which means at least some of these guys were smart enough to be like, no, that's bullshit. It doesn't work.
Yeah. Unfalsifiable theory.
Yeah, exactly. There are a few guys out there at the time who were like smart about this. But the other people who really don't like dowsing are the church, like either one. Like this is one of the few things Martin Luther and the Pope agree on is this is satanic in nature. That is Satan hanging off the end of your dowsing rod.
That sounds about right to me. Yeah,
true.
Yeah.
And it's worth noting that like in parts of France and probably other places, but this was the only place I could find, they used this to try to track criminals and heretics. On the basis that like if it finds
kind
silver,
of like the idea
finds...
that it would work for that, but for nothing else.
Yeah, it like only works from unbelief because like Satan, who is adjusting the thing, he like recognizes his own and therefore will like lead you to them. We've like we've invented a theory of this, which is it is satanic and therefore we can use it for like sort of criminal purposes, you know?
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense to me as well. So maybe I'm in favor of this now. I guess.
But like the thing is, the Inquisition made them stop doing that, and it's very funny to think of the Inquisition as being like this sort of advocate of like more responsible law enforcement. But I really think it's one of those you should see the other guys type things.
Oh my God! It's like we were trying to use the devil's tools against him.
Yeah, your options for like cops in the 16th century.
You're not going to reform Satanism from within.
Yeah, he's changing the culture, you know. Yeah, I feel like in the 16th century, your options for cops were like guy with Jesuit education or guy with no education. And the guy with no education is like, I got this stick that's going to tell me whether or not you're a heretic. And the guy with the Jesuit education is like, no, that's so unscientific. You have to torture them. You know?
Yeah, that's how that works.
You know, we all saw The Name of the Rose. Next slide, please.
Got to pull some fingernails out.
That's right. So here we have a slightly more modern, like 1940s dowser, because dowsing just keeps going. It's a folk tradition.
Oh yeah.
And I think now is probably a good time to get into like the sort of the parapsychology of this whole thing.
Do you have to like do something to the stick for it to be a dowsing rod?
Do you have to bless it or something?
Yeah, people keep changing their minds about this too. That's one thing. It used to have to be like hazel, and then you had to like do some like witchy stuff to it. But then as it sort of like became more popular and more entrenched, people just kind of thought you could just, you know, snap off a correctly shaped twig.
Pick up any stick, take the wishbone out of a chicken, use that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the idea is that it's more about the sort of like you than the stick, which I don't know. But like the first and most obvious thing to say about this, and you know, we might get some like hostile comments about this from like Dowsing fan 1980 or whatever, is that dowsing doesn't work.
Yes,
it just flatly doesn't work. It is very, very easy to prove that it doesn't work. You just, hide a bunch of water or like gems or, rocks or whatever, and then tell them to find it, and they do no better and no worse than random
Think
chance.
of the implications of if it did work. What if you picked up a stick at the beach? You'd be pulled into the water instantly.
Oh no!
That's how they invented water skiing.
Yeah.
But like scientists have been like proving that dowsing doesn't work since before they were even calling themselves scientists. Like fucking natural philosophers were proving that this didn't work. But like it doesn't matter. People keep going along with it. And so like my question is, why? Right? Why do people believe in this? Why do people like this? Why do people, walk a stick around their fields looking for water?
It's a fun way to spend an afternoon.
That's true. It's a good walk, I'm sure.
People don't want to just go out for a walk. They have to invent dowsing or golf or something.
It's a good walk spoiled. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good, like low impact cardio, like dowsing. If you want to take up dowsing at like an old age, you'd probably be good at keeping you healthy. But I mean, my first answer is like often people don't believe it. Like we heard back in the 16th century, like some of these guys were flatly like, no, this is a stupid idea. Like, I don't want to do this.
Sure.
But like, so long as there's like enough people who are dumb enough to believe it, it just kind of keeps going. And they kind of like always have been. The other thing is that like of the people who do believe it, they kind of all claim to believe it very strongly and very sincerely. And that throws people off. Like a lot of scientists will be like, okay, well, like this guy absolutely 100% believes he can find Eric Adams' hoard of gems, like with this stick. So something else must be going on here, right? Like it has to be some like unconscious effect or whatever. The thing just moves on its own in his hands. He has nothing to do with it.
Sure, why not?
And the sort of that's the common scientific explanation for this. It's like it's the same as a Ouija board, right? As I think called the ideomotor response, where like you have sort of like normal reflex movements, but you exaggerate them based on like unconscious impulses based on your psychology, and now all of a sudden you're spelling out a message or whatever. Same thing. I also think science has been reluctant to state the obvious and say some of these motherfuckers are lying and know that it doesn't work.
Yeah, that's a big one right there.
Yeah.
Especially if you get paid to do it, which a lot of people did. Like people got paid to like douse for oil, and it like we know that it had no mechanism of working, but like oil companies would pay for it.
Right, so why not? Take them for a ride.
Yeah. Difficult to get a man to understand a thing when his salary depends on him not understanding it.
Yeah, absolutely. But like, I feel like some of them genuinely did understand that it was like bullshit and just considered themselves to be con artists. And yeah, it's tradition. It gets like embedded. People have been doing it for like hundreds of years. They pretend they've been doing it for thousands of years, so it like feels more right. And we're sort of like we're very stupid sometimes. And we have this idea of like confirmation bias, where if you follow around a dowsing guy and he finds water, like you're going to remember that. You're probably not going to remember as much all the times that he doesn't find water and then like makes up some shit. It's like, oh, the stick was defective or whatever.
Yeah, I got a bad stick. I got to get a good stick.
Yeah, it stands out more.
The problem is all the good sticks were pulled into the ocean.
Yeah, they're all like in the dead center of the Bermuda Triangle. There's a little forest of sticks down there.
Yeah, exactly. They're all like gradually coalescing into sort of a wood mass, the density of a neutron star.
Oh God. I guess the other thing, and I don't really see this sort of written about much in like understandings of this as like a pseudoscience or whatever, is that like you dig anywhere, you're gonna find something because that's where all the stuff is. Like there's gonna be something you dig deep enough, even if you like, And like the other thing is most of the time it's gonna be water. So like claiming you can find water by digging into the earth, it's sort of like is based on a fundamental misunderstanding of like what water is doing hanging out in the earth. And like people imagine that like, oh, there's just like wells and then the rest of the fucking ground is just like dry underneath it. It's like, no, you dig deep enough in most places. find
There's
water.
there's groundwater everywhere.
Yeah.
Find me something interesting like an artesian well. Go
Yes.
fuck yourself.
I'll tell him,
Yeah.
boss.
And like you can always fudge the results, because like if you're gonna find something, if you dig deep enough, then eventually you can be like, my magic stick here was actually responding to this thing that we found, not what I
Right.
said we were looking for. It's like classic sort of like parlor trick stuff. But all this belongs to an age of ignorance, right? Now, in our sort of grand present, we live in an age of reason, right? Next slide,
Yes.
please.
Yeah, that's what I would call this too. Yes.
Such things, we don't do them anymore. We don't believe in them. We it's fallen by the wayside, I assume.
Of course.
Next slide, please. Thank you. Ah, fuck. Yeah.
Oh no.
Well,
it's from a few years ago. UK water firms admit using divining rods to find leaks in pipes. So at one point, like more than half of the water companies in the UK were just using dowsing rods to find leaks in their pipes. And we lose like millions of gallons of water a year on like leaky pipes too. It's like genuinely one of the biggest like cost overruns in the water industry in the UK.
That's pretty typical of most water systems, though. They're not the dirty secret of water pipes is they're not as watertight as you might think.
Yeah. And so you got to find them somehow. And the answer, it turned out, for a lot of them was the engineer thinks that he can do some magic. And at some point in the 20th century, dowsing rods switched from being like a wooden stick to these metal rods. And the idea is you like hold them and they like cross over themselves.
Right. And then there's water.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, of course.
There's like a real easy way to do this, to figure out where a leak is.
Drill, baby, drill.
Which is to measure the water flow at one point and then another point farther down.
But that's not as much fun as going for a nice walk in the field with your bent rods. And I think it's interesting too, like if you ask people who are into this how it's supposed to work, they kind of have a number of different answers. The traditional one is like magic, right? The pseudoscientific one is the shit that you're looking for gives off like auras or vibrations or some shit like that are like
it gives off vibes.
Yeah, that are like detectable only with the aid of like metal rods or like a stick or whatever. And then there's also
you're like trying to douse to find the leak in the water supply system, and you're like walking through this field and it's like next to a completely unlined canal. You're like, where is the leak? How is this leak happening?
Impossible to say.
It just goes into the ground, you dummy.
But there's also this like fallback position, which I'm very interested in, which is where it tries to engage with like parapsychology, and it goes, oh yeah, okay, like the dowser is like doing it themselves, but like because they unconsciously notice minute clues in the environment that like make them do it.
I love my open back headphones, I promise.
It's like that one book Blink by Malcolm Gladwell, which is a very serious scientific text. People like perceive stuff extrasensorily in an unconscious way. Sure, fine.
Yeah, you get out these two sticks and you walk down the street and you see there's a massive geyser of water coming out of the street where the water main broke, and you're like, there it is. Thank God I got the dowsing rod.
Yeah, and like you can falsify all of this because it doesn't work. It just doesn't. Like that's an explanation you could use if it had a better rate of success than chance, but it doesn't. It just doesn't. So that's dowsing. That's a sort of a little pseudoscience, a little folk tradition. And that's fine. That's not an engineering disaster. Certainly, that's just people being people. Right.
I'm pretty sure it is a disaster if licensed professional engineers are using it to detect leaks. That's a big problem.
All right, fine. That's half of a There's Your Problem episode. The other half was I promised you car bombs, right?
Yay!
Yes. Right.
But in order to get to car bombs, we have to go to the next slide, and to Harleyville, South Carolina.
Oh boy.
Population
Oh, boy.
666.
Wow.
This is one of 2 photos of Harleyville, South Carolina I could find on Google Images. Now, Harleyville, South Carolina is home to a guy called Wade Lucius Quattlebaum.
That's not real.
This, to me, this is a normal
Yeah.
American name. All
What's,
Civil War
what's
generals were named this.
What's a quaddle and how does it get bound?
Oh, that's well, there's your problem after dark, sir.
Yeah. Well, Baum is a tree. I'm not sure what a
Oh,
quattle
bound.
is.
I heard bound.
No, Baum. Quattlebaum. So this guy is a high school dropout, used car salesman, and chiefly for our purposes, terrible golfer.
Right.
Yes.
Loses a lot of golf balls.
Same.
And when you lose a golf ball, it ends up in the rough. It ends up in the tall grass. You got to walk around finding it, which is a pain, right? And so he thinks, what if I, and this is more or less in quotes, invent something to find a golf ball? And he does. He invents something. Next slide, please.
Huh.
He invents the gopher. Now, the gopher is a golf ball finder, as you see here on its box. The idea is you hit your golf ball into the rough, you pull this thing out, and the aerial on this sort of plastic box that points to where your golf ball is, and you find your golf ball. Saves time.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. All right.
Now,
I'm on board. That looks like it works. This doesn't look like the meat thermometer Roz has at all.
Well, the meat thermometer that Roz has presumably has a power source.
Yes.
This does not. This is a plastic box with an aerial attached to it, and the aerial is on a pivot, and that's it. It's sort of it's an unpowered device. And I mean, one thing I will say for it probably will give you a vague idea of the wind direction, which is a better indicator of where your golf ball might be than a lot of other things, right? So maybe, just maybe, I'm willing to concede that yes, you are being robbed if you buy this. Yes, you are being very stupid, but it may point you in the right direction some of the time to find your golf ball.
Maybe slightly higher than random chance, but only slightly.
Maybe.
Now you have an additional thing to throw and hope that it hits your ball.
This is true, yeah.
Yeah. But so this makes Wade some money, but he also discovers, and I'm not sure how he does this. No one ever talked to him about it. He's now dead too, which is a shame. That it doesn't just find golf balls. This thing can find anything.
Oh, that's convenient.
Yeah. What you do is you put a little frequency card in there to tell it what to find, and it finds it. And it'll find anything. It'll find drugs, dead bodies, guns, any number of these things.
I like how Wade here is put together the two ancient not going for a walk things, dowsing and golfing, and put them together. These two great tastes. They go great together.
Yeah.
Yes.
So he renames the gopher to the Quadro Tracker, and incorporates as Quadrocorp. And then Wade identifies a class of consumers who have a lot of money, are very easy to scam, and incredibly, furiously resistant to the idea that they have been scammed. He starts selling this to cops.
Yep.
Good idea.
He puts together a network of distributors and demonstrators, and he takes this on the road. And of course, a lot of these people are themselves cops or ex-cops. One guy was both the sheriff and mayor of a tiny Florida town. It's all guys like this. And they go and do these demonstrations where they're like, hey, check it out. We can and obviously they have rigged all of these demonstrations, but it's no, you can find marijuana with this. You can find dead bodies. You can find guns with this. And
you can find evidence of any crime One officer reported using this device to find evidence of conspiracy to commit public nudity.
It's beautiful though. Like I found a quote from his lawyer when this all fell apart, where his lawyer says, "I was in the FBI. I've dealt with these sort of boiler room fraud cases, and I tell you, those sorts don't try to sell things to cops. They sell them to old grandmothers and retired people down in Florida," which is
That's what cops eventually become.
yes, yeah, and it's this beautiful idea that like no, cops don't sort of like get scammed. It just doesn't happen, which is hysterical. It's a beautiful idea, you know. And they sell these and the frequency cards, which is a great little innovation because now, like, if you want to detect weed, you have to buy the weed card. If you want to detect guns, you want to buy the gun card. So you have to sell all of those too.
You want to detect conspiracy to commit public nudity. You got to buy that card.
Yeah. And these go for like thousands of dollars each. And the way he makes these cards is he puts on a pair of white gloves. He takes a Polaroid photo of the thing that he wants to find, like a naked guy.
Right.
And then the photo
or a man who plans to be naked.
Yeah, a man who plans to be naked. He takes a Polaroid of him, takes that Polaroid to what appears to the uninitiated to be a Canon copier, but in reality, he explained, was a electromagnetic frequency transfer unit.
Oh, what?
Okay.
No, I'm on board. Fuck it.
He makes a photocopy of the Polaroid, which extracts the molecular structure and its subsequent frequency emission. Then he cuts the photocopy into tiny squares, puts one of the squares into the card, and now you have a card that will detect a guy who wants to be naked.
Why not?
Wow.
Why not? Love it. We should get in on this script.
Oh, many people do. The main people that he sells these to, by the way, are school districts. Because this is the point when a lot of American school districts are getting very heavily into having cops, their own cops. Ugh. They're worried about kids bringing drugs to school and guns to school. And so,
I don't like the implication of trying to detect conspiracy to commit public nudity in a child.
Yeah, that's bad.
I don't like that. I don't like that.
No.
There's like a priest in a daycare, as they say.
There's this one guy, Wolfgang Halbig, who is director of student discipline in Seminole County, Florida, who says, you can walk with it in your hand, you see the antenna swing, it points to a sign, you move the sign, there's a bullet, and they had a gunpowder chip in there. We were finding bullets, we were finding marijuana, and I saw the big picture, a device that could serve as a deterrent. Just let kids know that we have a tool that can find those substances.
Sure.
And like
I
all of these
smoke my joint at the flagpole and protest.
Yeah, no, all of these like school district guys are like, yeah, we don't care if it doesn't work. We just want the kids to be afraid of it.
Want the appearance of it, right?
Yeah.
That's how all school security works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Except Lower Marion School District, where they just actually spy on the kids.
14-year-olds, baby. Yeah, we're really in the best interest of the child, which is why we want to see your 13-year-old daughter naked. Yeah, we are.
That's why they got this like aerial, you know.
Yeah,
but so Quadrocorp makes more and more claims about these things. They claim that this works. Right?
They just can't stop.
Yeah, it works by oscillating static electricity produced by the body inhaling and exhaling gases into and out of the lung cavity.
Hey, what? That's what?
To charge the free-floating neutral electrons of the signature card with the major strength of the signal. And you can use this thing to find people from a photograph. You could use it to detect drugs in solution in their blood, which means if you use it to like find a guy to search for drugs and he doesn't have any drugs on him, that's not a false positive. It just means he like did drugs earlier.
So we're doing X-ray specs.
Yes. Yeah, it's X-ray specs for cops. And then, ironically enough, it runs into a problem. Next slide, please. Runs into a Fed. I think this is the guy. I hope it's the right picture. A federal agent, an FBI agent called Ron Kelly.
Right.
And Ron Kelly is on a drug task force in Louisiana. and like one of the cops he's working with is like, "Hey, check this shit out." It's detects drugs, right? And it encounters a smart person for the first time.
It took a while, but eventually
it's
there's
like
one guy
floating
with a head on his
Timeline long
shoulders.
enough.
Floating around mostly in the South, Texas, Louisiana, Florida, and then it runs into one guy who goes, "I don't think this works." And so Ron Kelly,
Probably fake.
Ron Kelly gets his hands on one of these and he has it run through a courthouse x-ray machine where he discovers there is nothing in there. It's an empty box.
Yes.
He says it was clearly hollow. It didn't take a lot of effort on our part to determine it was phony. And so this goes up the chain, and like the FBI lab looks at it, Sandia National Laboratories look at it, and all of them also go, "This is an empty box." They find that one of
nothing in there.
Yeah, they find that one of the frequencies
You can use it to smuggle drugs.
Yeah, that's true.
Extensive investigation that involved prying one of them open with a screwdriver.
They did have a look at the frequency cards too, and they found out that one of them contained dead ants that had been frozen and stuck onto paper with glue.
Ew.
That's the problem. All these things are pointing at ants.
So there, of course, follows a federal investigation for fraud. Quadrocorp's attorneys, they say the inductors and oscillators supposed to be in there aren't the type usually thought of by electronics experts. So they genuinely try to argue that, like, it's not empty, the stuff is just invisible.
What?
Yeah,
this does not work.
real cat ate my homework ass defense.
Actually, it kind of does work because, like, you can't really fail doing this stuff. Like, the Fed shut down the company, right? And like, our boy Wade has to pay like a $500 fine or something like that. But like, all of his distributors, all of those guys, like, some of them go to trial, all of them get acquitted. One guy, Malcolm Stig Rowe, he jumps bail and goes to Britain, which is a horrible decision for anyone.
Yes.
But like, he's onto a good idea now, and so he just like rebuilds those distribution networks to sell more of these, to sell more golf ball trackers. And okay, fine. This is like 2/3 of a Well, There's Your Problem episode, right? This is like a great moment in the history of American scams. All of these people have been very gullible or uncaring, and they've wasted public money. We still haven't gotten to the car bombs, but it's 1996. We just got to hold on until 9/11 happens and creates a whole new generation of rubes. Next slide, please. 9/11 happens and creates a whole new generation of rubes. I just searched anime 9/11 tribute for this one. I hope you enjoy it.
Could have gone the one that was SpongeBob and Pregnant Sandy.
Oh, what the fuck? Are you okay?
Mistakes into miracles.
I'm gonna car bomb your house. Gotta leave that.
Yeah.
9/11 happens, and now there's not just a war on drugs scam to run, there's a war on terror scam to run. Next slide, please.
Yeah.
And 1,000 flowers bloom. There are so many of these. This one's a quick hit. This is Sniffex.
Sniffex.
You may notice that they paid for a nicer box. It's like made out of metal and shit.
That's how you know it's good.
Got like sort of some kind of brown inlay there.
Yeah, it's got like stuff in it. It's got a couple of magnets or something, maybe like a wire.
Casing contains 2 pairs of magnets and a nitrous oxide detector called Container 19.
Why is it called that?
I don't know. I don't know why you want to be able to detect a diesel engine.
So the US Navy tested this as an explosives detector, and the US Navy found that it could not detect 2 trucks carrying half a ton of explosives from a distance of 20 feet. And the US Navy reported the Sniffex handheld explosives detonator does not work. And the US Navy bought 8 of them for $50,000 anyway.
Why?
Because it was the 2000s. You could sell the US military anything for any amount of money.
I gotta
could
spend that budget, or they're gonna reduce it
They're going to
next
take
year.
it away from you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. You could become an arms dealer. You could set up doing that. You could do any number of things. And like the whole thing was also this stock manipulation scam. So like this collapsed pretty quickly. One guy pleaded guilty on like SEC charges for stock manipulation. As far as we know, this was never actually used, but it was a nice sort of short con. You buy a little box and you get some money out of the Navy for it, and you also,
I was about to say, yeah, 50 grand's pretty good. That's a good grift. It's even better than selling $500 hammers.
Yeah. Next slide, please. So, if you remember Malcolm, our guy who jumped bail and went to the UK, well, Malcolm makes a friend, and this friend is this guy, Gary Bolton. This is sort of very much in the genre of photos of just coming out of court, but where my like entire shit has just been kicked in, which I like a lot. And Gary used to have an actually cool job. He used to be a vault security engineer for the Bank of England.
That's cool.
Which seems like something you would like.
Series of mine carts that goes deep into the ground, you know.
Yeah, he maintains that for all the sort of like anti-Semitic stereotypes that work at Gringotts Bank. But like, of all the things you could have done as a former vault security engineer for the Bank of England, I would think if you fell on hard times, the obvious one would be rob the Bank of England, right? Like it's right there.
Right.
But like he doesn't do the cool thing. Instead, what he does is he gets this job as a kind of like a low-end arms dealer, like selling British defense shit internationally. It's on Trash Future, we've talked about this before. The British defense industry is like, okay, there's one part that's like BAE systems. It's like making submarines and fighter jets and shit. But the bulk of it, like surprisingly, is just bald guys like this in industrial estates making
doing the plot
like
of War Dogs. Yes,
you get the man in the shed.
Yeah, like making sort of like a taser that kills you instantly and selling it to Mohammed bin Salman. It's that kind of like milieu. That's where Gary Bolton, this guy, exists. And so he gets in on the golf ball tracker, the Quadro tracker. He changes the name to the Mole, and he sells this in Malta, the Dutch Antilles, Mexico, Peru, and South Africa for an average price of $11,000 per. And he's sort of taking this. Yeah, he's taking this on the road, and like he's going to these countries and making these deals, and he's getting kind of feedback on it, mostly from people going, "This is a golf ball tracker." Right?
And he says, "Nah, can't touch me."
We're finding a shitload of golf balls.
There's so many out here, man.
Yeah, who knew there were so many golf balls in the Dutch Antilles? But so eventually, what he does is he buys out Roe with the profits from these, and he changes up the device a bit based on like the feedback. And so we get, next slide, please, the GT200.
Ooh.
Looks a bit more serious now, right? Looks a bit more tactical. It's got a hand grip on it.
I assume you've already bought one of these, Alice.
Oh yeah, of course. I have like 2 of these in a sort of like a belt holster all the time.
Yeah.
It looks like it, does something maybe. Also, he benefited a great deal from like magnetic strip and RFID cards becoming like ubiquitous, because now you don't have to stick any dead ants to anything. You can just have like a plastic card that says what it detects on it. And it's way easier and it looks a bit more plausible to people. The obvious indication that this is not like functional is still the fact that it has no power source. And also they really don't want you to open it up and look inside.
Was there ever determined a reason why in the original device there were dead ants glued to it? Someone,
I don't think so.
Like went out of their way to glue
Yeah, I was thinking that too.
Into the thing. Like you had to actually find some dead ants and glue them in there.
It's strange, isn't it? I don't know whether that was just like Wade sort of having a laugh at some cop's expense or what, but because it could just have been nothing just as easily. But no, he really went the extra mile. These cards, by the way, they did open one of these up. What's inside of these is a sheet of paper that has been cut off of a larger sheet with like a pair of scissors. It has no electronic components. The The box itself has no electronic components. I have a great
Do you
quote
remember?
here.
Do you remember the Nintendo e-card reader, where it had
No.
like very simple dot matrix, like games you could read? It read card. This is what it reminds me of: a Nintendo e-card reader to tie into Animal Crossing, but for drugs.
I have a beautiful quote here from an explosives expert called Sidney Alford. Speaking as a professional, I would say that it is an empty case. Which I like. I love that you needed sort of like an expert witness
qualification.
Yeah, it's like me with my sort of like degrees in explosives detection, being like, no, this is a plastic box.
Oh yeah, there's nothing in there.
Yeah. So he tries selling this to like around the UK to like our cops. And I you know, surprising credit to British police, no one's interested. Like
wow.
People are able to like, you know, sort of like warn people effectively that this is an empty box. But you know, that's one ministry, that's the Home Office. The Ministry of Defense, though, they're very into this. And this is where we have to talk about complicity. Because Ministry of Defense, they never bought these for like British troops because they didn't work. Like, but what they did do is they spent 4 years and a shitload of money trying to help this guy sell this worldwide. There's
shit.
like, yeah, like there's this a bit of the MOD that's meant to help sell British defense production abroad. They have like a team of the Royal Engineers who like support that. And so by paying them 500 quid for a report that said that they couldn't figure out how it worked, and then changing the title in Microsoft Word, this guy was now able to have like British soldiers in uniform demonstrating this product at arms fairs. Like they put their imprimatur on it. They had like, you know, if you have a conversation at like a defense show or whatever with a British soldier who's, you know, like trying to sell you on this, that's like a sort of peer-to-peer conversation, right? It's not just like one guy called Gary who's like, yeah, I got this from a guy called you know, Wade.
Jeff with a G.
Yeah.
Hey, we don't use these, but you should.
Yeah,
exactly. And they like they went on TV trying to sell this shit, and this went all over the world, all sorts of unexpected places like Dubai, China, Lebanon, Jordan, the Philippines, and wherever they took it, they had this confidentiality agreement, which is you can't open it. We will fine you like infinity million pounds if you open the casing of this. If you try and test it scientifically, we will fine you 11 billion pounds. And like eventually, like the UK authorities get turned onto this. They like issue this warning that you should not buy this. Bolton gets arrested. He gets sentenced to 7 years in prison for fraud. Right? Man, does that ever feel like too little, too late when you think about where this thing went, especially in big numbers? Because there were two major consumers of this. Next slide, please. Mexico. Mexico during the Calderon administration too. So like this is really the country is like 2 steps away from falling into the abyss. The government is desperate for anything anti-drug or anti-cartel. And they spend $27 million US. They buy almost 1,000 of these fucking things.
No.
What do you
which tells
think
you how
was
much they
the
cost.
unit cost of producing these things?
Dollars, if that. I'm gonna say cents.
Yeah, it was like 75 cents.
Very, very little. But we established one thing very early. Many of the people actually using these things know perfectly well that they do not work, right? Because it's obvious.
Fucking vile, dude.
Yeah.
Like, you put this into someone's hand and they're like, you know, some of them will believe it, but like for the most part, people are perfectly aware that this is like a little aerial on a stick. And I have heard it suggested that in a lot of cases, the way that Mexican police came to use this was actually of some utility, even though they were catastrophically overpaying for it, which was as a sort of a search warrant evasion device, or as a sort of like a probable cause generator, where you go, I want to search that guy, but I don't want to have to come up with a reason. So I will point the little fucking like aerial at him, and now I have like a scientific, in quotes, reason to like search him for drugs.
It's that easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, shit, that works at least. I don't know if it's worth $27 million. It's profoundly unjust. Also, like, it stops working when the guy selling it gets arrested, and then all of your cases collapse. But like, for a minute there, no downsides.
We put like 3 guys in jail, and then we
Yeah.
had to let them out. But
Also,
Worry
it's
about
like Mexico in like 2006. So it's also, we tortured all of those guys.
oh yeah,
Off of the car aerial thing. I mean, in the context of like Mexico's drug war, like that's like $27 million is perversely not a lot, but like all of it could have been used on something that worked. Like you could have spent that on fucking like slightly nicer shower curtains in the police barracks, right? And that still wouldn't have been as much of a waste of money.
That would be a funny way to spend 27 million. Just
Yeah.
curtains.
about to say, yeah.
Anyone wants to tell me what the U.S. military shower curtain budget is? Because I believe that's a 6-figure number.
Well,
Yeah.
it funded Aperture Laboratories.
Yeah, that's what I had in mind. Yeah.
True.
Next slide, please. The other big seller, the other big buyer here was Thailand. And Thailand is interesting because this is also a war on drugs thing, but it's also a war on terror
I'll give
thing
you
because
a mossy oak breakup camo shower curtain from Kohl's. God, I need this.
Yeah, they actually like had to spend millions of dollars when they switched from like OCP to UCP. They had to change all the shower curtains. You can get like a surplus shower curtain for really cheap now, so long as it's in like hideous gray.
I'm gonna get some of these just because I have my own bathroom now with my own shower, and I'm gonna. Oh my god, they have the flag of Cuba.
Wow.
get a Cuban flag shower curtain. Support the revolution. Hasta la victoria siempre.
What's going on, Dad?
But so Thailand, you may be aware there's an ongoing and bloody insurgency in the south of Thailand, which has had sort of like varying levels of Islamist involvement. Thailand also has an extremely top-heavy and corrupt military, all of which means we are taking this thing into the business of detecting bombs in a place where there may well actually be bombs, and this shit does not work. And like, to me, there is a different moral valence here. Like, providing a false pretext for someone getting arrested and tortured, that's one bad thing. Getting blown the fuck up because like your boss's boss paid $27,000 each for a plastic case with an aerial on it. That's kind of another bad thing,
This is incredible that this guy came up with a business with less overhead than podcasting.
Yeah, we had to buy microphones.
Budget.
Also, we don't promise that like this podcast will detect bombs. We're kind of under promising based on the standards of scams.
I was about to say this podcast will actually change your life. It will make you more popular. It will make you stronger. It will make women like you. It will make your enemies fear you if you listen to this podcast.
No weapon formed against you shall prosper.
Yes,
and you may also get one bonus episode a month if you're lucky.
No man born of a woman may kill you.
Yeah, man born of a man, though, you are on your fucking own.
That's right. But so
hoisted by my own petard, by which I mean Mpreg fanfic.
God.
Oh God.
Hey guys, welcome to the bonus episode.
Yeah.
I was just trying to make a Shakespearean reference.
Yeah, you also talked about pregnant Sandy and SpongeBob, all right? So let's none of us are free from sin, motherfucker.
No, that's certainly true.
Yeah.
But so like again, we get this thing where like, and this time it's more emotional still because like the guys using this, they know they don't work. I read one thing that people were like searching cars with their hands or with like a pair of chopsticks and shit for bombs, rather than using these. I did find one story though, which is there was this Thai bomb disposal tech. Bomb disposal guys are all crazy, right? This guy figured this does not work, decided to prove it did not work, and the way he chose to prove it was to drive through a checkpoint where they were searching cars using these with like 4 sticks of dynamite taped to the bumper of his car. And he just got waved through, and he had to like pull over on the other side and be like, "Hey, do you want to like check the car again? Because this shit does not work."
Some TSA hijinks here.
Yeah.
It reminds me of you know, where you're searching like the car with your hands and stuff. It reminds me of how my mom used to volunteer at the Hirshhorn Museum at the Smithsonian.
Oh, great fucking museum.
Yeah, it's a good one. And you know, the security guards, you know, they'd search everyone's bags with a stick, and they just sort of informally referred to them as death sticks. Because if there was anything in there, it was going to set it off.
Cool. I mean, what's funny is that like even when this is proven not to work, the Thai military keeps using it. Thai generals keep insisting that it does work. I have a quote here from one general. The device operators on the ground can use them effectively. This may not be explained scientifically, but I'm telling the truth. Which yeah, why? I don't know.
Well, they can pull over anyone they feel like pulling over.
That's true. That's certainly true. And it's, you know, it may be magic. A director of the Central Institute of Forensic Science said, although she knew it was not scientific equipment, she believed that forensic scientists could still use it effectively. We won't buy more, but we won't stop using them either, which is a beautiful compromise position.
That's some sunk cost fallacy right there.
That's real genius shit hours.
Yeah, and there's like a bunch of reasons why this might happen. Like aside from the obvious one of you get to pull over whoever you want, you might also have been paid off to like get these contracts. You might have sunk cost fallacy. You might just be desperate. You could like earnestly trick yourself into believing it. Like all of these things at once. And even the legal repercussions in Thailand, they don't really get anywhere. Like the sort of the Anti-Corruption Commission investigates this. It takes them like 10 years, and they only sort of like they like write up complaints against like a handful of minor officials about this, and then nothing else happens.
I don't know why it has to take 10 years to do an investigation on this. When it should be pretty open and shut. You know, you bought an empty box for millions of dollars.
You literally open and shut it. Yes.
Yeah.
But so that's the GT200, and our boy Gary goes to jail over this. But this isn't even the only one. There's a lot more. Next slide, please. This is another one that the Thai military bought. This is the Alpha 6, which is the fucking Gopher again. It's literally the same. They changed the label.
Yeah.
That's
the same thing. It has hand grips on it.
Yeah.
A little bit.
The head of the Thai anti-drug agency claimed that these had a 70% success rate and were going to replace dogs because of how good they were.
And replace every dog in the country. You won't have a pet anymore. You will have this. It will love you.
I'm taking my Alpha 6 for a walk. They spent $10 million on these. And if you go to the next slide, we can see who was making these in a garden shed in Dunstable. This is
the truck bomb slide.
Huh?
What? Maybe
no.
I have the different order. I have a different order of slides. No, wait, okay. No, I went back. 17. No, I went one too far. That's my bad.
Backwards.
Uh-huh.
Wow.
It's okay. Slide 17 with the beautiful British
80
physiognomy.
million! 80 million!
Says the lesson in not quitting while you're ahead.
Wow.
These two, Samuel Tree and his wife Joan, both of whom look like sort of like evil characters in a Charles Dickens novel about.
Why
like,
does everyone in your country look like this?
I don't know.
They've recently been pickled and then raised from the dead by the Crypt Keeper.
Dishonored NPCs.
The fucking Dursleys right here.
Yeah. The Dursleys were like making these in their garden shed. They made 80 million quid off of this. Like when they went to trial, they claimed that they could find the body of Madeleine McCann with one of these.
That's evil.
Yeah, the dude got like 3.5 years in prison. His wife got like a 2-year prison sentence, suspended, and community service. This is the only sector of the British economy that actually makes products. It's scams. It's only scams. Everything else is like emails. We are a country that produces like fake bomb detectors,
Sex
and like
scandals,
emails.
day
Sex
callers,
scandals.
Yeah. Transphobia.
Transphobia.
Yeah.
We learned about the new issues group yesterday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Those are pretty vile people.
It's beautiful. It's a growth economy.
Yes.
But now we got to go to the biggest of all of these. Next slide, please. And this is where we get to car bombs. This is the ADE 651. It's not the same anymore. It's a different shape. It's got a cable that goes to a thing. It's got a pistol grip, so like it's a bit serious. And again, these were sold sort of like all over, but one really big buyer of these was the government of Iraq.
Oh no.
Next slide, please. So the other big innovation with the ADE 651 is you can make your own detecting thing. You can homebrew it like vape juice or tabletop role-playing games. You like what you do, the way this is supposed to work is you get the thing that you're trying to detect, you put it in a jar with one of these little stickers, which I guess raises the unit price of like making these up to like $1 maybe. You have to get stickers made. And then you shake the fucking jar around and you get a sticker that will detect the thing. And now it can do anything, like absolutely anything.
Okay. God help the guy who was trying to, put some like uranium on there so they could detect weapons of mass destruction.
And I just put I take it out of the thing. Take it out
like
of its lid container.
Moderately radioactive detector. It detects one thing. It detects Geiger counters very accurately.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow, we're going to make all the Geiger counters click. That means there must be nuclear weapons around.
Yeah. Next slide, please. And we get to the car bombs or the truck bombs in this case, because in 2008, the Iraqi Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Ministry of Justice, was bombed with like truck bombs that had driven through checkpoints, and like pretty much all the police checkpoints in Baghdad had at least one of these going. And again, people knew they didn't work. Like Iraqi civilians had this sort of like folk belief at this time that what they were actually picking up was like shampoo or perfume, because it always seemed to like point to anyone who had like smelled strongly. But it didn't even do that. It was literally just like freely pivoting on nothing. And like hundreds, dozens if not hundreds of people got killed because like these things did not work. The US government was like very aware. The US armies had like issued warnings that this shit did not work. It didn't matter. Like they had run these trainings where they would sort of like rig the results, humiliate anyone who was like skeptical about it. And like it was so insulting. Like the training, like again, because this doesn't have a power source, the lie is that like this is powered off of static electricity, right? And so part of the training was telling these guys to like shuffle their feet to generate static electricity to make the thing work. And like some people believe it, most people don't. But the people who do claim to believe it are the people who are in power, right? I have a quote here from Major General Jihad al-Jabiri of the cool job title, Interior Ministry's General Directorate for Combating Explosives. He says, whether it's magic or scientific, what I care about is detecting bombs. I don't care what they say. I know more about bombs than the Americans do. In fact, I know more about bombs than anyone in the world.
It's a lot of knowledge about bombs.
Yeah.
This is like the world's
probably not wrong.
preeminent expert in bombs. Like the Iraqi Interior Ministry says that like the reason why the Americans are saying it doesn't work is because they're trying to fund competitors to it. The like Deputy Interior Ministry says that the reason why the guy who was making them gets arrested is because he wouldn't tell the British the secret of how it worked. And that I have tested this in practice and it works 100% reliably. And it just doesn't.
This is what happens when you do debathification.
Yeah, pretty much. Like this is what happens when you set up a sort of a non-credible government.
Don't get mad at us. You already paid for it.
one of the sort of many things that lead Iraq into this spiral of like sectarian killing and civil war is that the Iraqi government's a joke, the Iraqi police are a joke. It's sort of like a death squad in uniform that incidentally is handed the responsibility for bomb detection, which it just doesn't do. And yeah, a lot of people get blown up off of this. With the sort of like knowledge of their superiors.
A sort of 100% rate of bomb detection, just not until after they go off. Bomb was detected. You can't argue with that one.
Now, you may ask yourself, what kind of horrible British ham-looking person would make and sell these? And the answer is on the next slide. This is a guy called James McCormack, who was sort
Why's
of like
he got red wine and a champagne flute?
It's like a classiest British person. I don't know what to tell you.
It's drug discovery fluid, Roz.
Oh my!
This
I want
guy
to beat
had been
this man to death with a roofing hammer.
He had been a cop in like Liverpool for a couple of years.
God, he is ruddy.
Not even for like a long time, for like 2 years, and then like in and out of different sales jobs. Which, by the way, how fucking either terrible or corrupt do you have to be to get fired out of like Merseyside police in the 90s after 2 years? Like, what was he doing? We may never know. But he made millions and millions off of this, off of selling this ADE 651. He bought a farmhouse in Somerset. He bought Nicolas Cage's old house, which is always a great financial decision. Had like a yacht, had 3 horses.
That means he has a copy of the Declaration of Independence too, right?
Yeah.
Wait, does Nicolas Cage have a copy of the Declaration of Independence, or are you just
kidding me?
National
Have you
Treasure
never
joke?
seen National
Oh,
Treasure?
you are just making a National Treasure joke.
God damn it, Alice! Don't make the noises. Don't do that.
I'm off my game today. What do you want from me? But the key thing about this is that this guy
going to
absolutely
the KFC incident.
Yeah, exactly. He knew what he was doing, and not just on a like he couldn't not sort of way. Like he told a whistleblower when this got to court. It works perfectly. It makes money. Like it's a wallet detector. I mean, I it's possible to get very angry about this. I do like to particularly to sell this to Iraq, like the country that we sort of like intentionally destabilized on the basis of lies and then like sell them on our other scams is literally adding insult to injury to me. To be like, oh, check this out, we're gonna help you out of your civil war that we helped start with some like plastic bullshit that we had assembled in our garden shed or whatever. And we're also laughing at you the whole time. This guy gets 10 years in prison. I think they should have given him the fucking death penalty.
Yeah.
Just fucking like, make him play frisbee with a landmine.
Ripping off poor people should, and I know that we differ in our approaches to the death penalty. Prison abolition, but this guy goes last.
Yeah. And incidentally, do you recall Major General Jihad al-Jabiri, the Interior Minister?
The guy who knew the most about bombs?
The guy who knows the most about bombs, that guy, yeah.
But having a first name Jihad is pretty cool, though.
That's true. I mean, kind of awkward for a while there. Probably still.
That's good. Probably
it's
still.
a good name, but
yeah.
But yeah, so he gets imprisoned after it turns out that of the contract that Iraq signs with this guy for these detectors, 75% of the monetary value is in kickbacks to him personally.
Gotta look out for number one.
It's all crimes. It's crimes all the way down. And like that's my biggest answer to like the sort of there isn't an engineering disaster here, right? In the sense that like it's an empty box. As the guy says,
engineering.
It works exactly as it's supposed to. It separates people from their money. But like the failure is in how all of these people were allowed to buy and sell it with no one sort of like thinking, oh, this is obviously fraudulent, and being able to make it stick. And even after it being like exposed as a fraud, people still buying it, people still using it. And like these get everywhere. If I tried to list every country that these were sold in, it would be like the fucking Animaniacs song. and like I can't express enough how much of the war on terror has been like this, has been like for the benefit of guys who look exactly like this in order to buy like their third horse, right? Which is, fine. It's all sort of like another great surreal moment, another vignette in the war on terror. We're all sort of doing the Taliban shuffle, right? Fine, whatever. It's fine. Unless it's you or your family getting blown up. And if you care about that shit, it's like somehow gauche, you know? It's just tremendously insulting and infuriating. And there's if you're looking for like responsibility for this, you have to place it on a kind of economy that prioritizes scam artists and fraudsters, which is kind of what the Blair economy was, and then taking that on the road.
Very difficult to make money doing actual stuff anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean this is it. Like, as the sort of economy contracts and stuff, this is a good way of making money, if you don't mind going to prison, is to just do this and just hope to outrun the authorities.
I was about to say, these guys who went to prison, were they allowed to keep their money?
I think that's all proceeds of crime. I really hope so.
I would
but
hope
on the
so,
other
yeah.
hand, if you have like 80 million quid or whatever, you've got to put like some of that in Panama, right? Like you've got to be able to do that.
You throw that in a Swiss bank account. You throw that in I don't know, just like a large cube of gold, which is too heavy for anyone to move. So
well, it gets attracted by dowsing rods, though, so it's fine.
God.
But yeah, so that's the story of how a handful of people who look like assemblies of wet ham managed to take a sort of discredited pseudoscience and like scam some of the most vulnerable people in the world. There is an epilogue to this.
It's a man who looks like a large cured meat, such as you would see at the supermarket deli counter.
yeah. This guy just looks like villainous in a way that like you can't really. God damn, dude.
Can I get like 2 pounds of this guy thinly sliced?
We also have a low sodium version if you'd prefer that. Next slide, please.
There's no way there's a low sodium version of this guy.
No. So this is a very low resolution still from something the Egyptian army released, because these devices have a long tail. Like they keep coming back up. People keep saying, I have used this to find whatever, in the same way that Dowsing did. In 2014, the Egyptian army claimed to have independently invented this as an AIDS detector. It could like detect the presence of AIDS.
Why are they looking for AIDS?
Homophobia reasons, probably. I have no idea.
Yeah, probably.
The Iranian Revolutionary Guards Corps claimed that they had one that could detect COVID from 100 meters away.
Cool. Good.
So
good thing it worked.
Yeah, people are just going to want to keep believing this. Man, remember the week that like half the Iranian parliament all got COVID? I mean, should have, had some of these maybe.
I was about to say.
And yeah, they're gonna keep. The thing
coming, detected COVID from 100 meters away. It'd just be going crazy constantly.
Yeah,
it'd just be spinning around. It would be making sounds,
So that's it. That's my line from dowsing to car bombs. Sink Britain into the ocean. Scam country. Never buy anything from anyone here except a podcast. I've badly depressed myself on this one, but that's what did we learn?
KFC.
Yeah, possibly. I'm just like I'm like sweating sort of chicken grease through all of my pores. Ramadan starts in like
this is a
4
short
hours.
One, folks.
No, I think people like a short episode, right? I've heard that.
Yeah,
I hope
We're gonna get April out soon too. Don't worry.
Yeah, we're firmly on it for like the next mainline and the next bonus. But it's what was going to be this month's bonus is now going to be next month's bonus. So I just did this in one sitting. I hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah. So anyway, I think the lesson to learn here is that You should not trust dowsing until someone is physically pulled into the ocean by a dowsing rod.
In which case,
Before your
immediately
eyes.
give your life to Jesus Christ. Yes.
Yes.
Yes, yeah. Similarly, if you are working on sort of like a security checkpoint and one of your guys holding one of these gets like magnetically drawn through the air to the side of a truck, you should probably stop that truck.
Yes.
Otherwise, do not depend on it.
This is the problem with dowsing is all the people who could actually do it were drawn into the ocean and drowned.
Yeah, it's like a bunch of drowned German miners.
Yes.
Sad.
They're pulled into
Tragic,
the
yeah.
earth and are now surrounding a large gold nugget.
Das ist mein Loch. Das ist für mich. I'm not even sure if I gendered whole correctly there, which would not be the problems of the German language. Anyway, thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing to the Patreon. And we will see you next time.
Have a good night.
Yes.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Back.